the idea of having toughness and that we already have it, but we need to still keep taking care of ourselves. So if Valesca and Michelle, if you could introduce yourselves and how you're representing the organization, the Irish Research Staff Association, the Trinity Research Staff Association.
Okay, so thank you. I'm Valesca and I'm assistant professor in DCU. I have started that position very recently before being a postdoc for the past 4 or 5 years. So I have joined in 2020 the Irish Research Staff Association, and what we do, the Irish RSA is an umbrella organization that connects all the researcher associations at the local level, at the local universities. So we have members from UCD, from DCU, from Trinity, and what we have been doing together is to try and identify what are the main issues affecting researchers and academics. So this is about job security, about funding, this is about having a career prospect, and especially learning that we can stay in academia, but if we decide to stay, as we have, I think, decided so far, that a lot has to change. So we have been organizing, and this is, and we have been doing that in partnership with the local organizations and also with iFood and unions as well, because they also represent researchers and academics. So I think this is
Good evening, everybody. My name is Michelle Scher. I'm a senior research fellow here in Trinity College, and I've been in a research career for a very long time. I've been in Trinity as a senior research fellow for 15 years, and I've been a researcher in the health service before that. So pretty much someone that's always been in a research role. And I'm here today representing the Trinity Research Staff Association, which is a recognised association in Trinity. So it's really a forum for bringing together researchers of all types in Trinity to help them have a voice. They're a very, very large proportion of the staff. I think, Darren, correct me if I'm wrong, about the same amount of research staff as there are academic staff.
Yeah, about 25% each.
Sorry?
About 25% research academic.
Yeah, so about 800 and something, isn't it? So, but very hard to find out exactly who they are. So that's been one of the big things that's been going on in the Trinity Staff Research Association. So it's about also helping people to have a voice and making them more visible and recognised across Trinity, and to provide help for those on short fixed-term contracts, as we all know there are big issues there. So in terms of the work, interestingly, in 2019 there was a sort of a renewal of the TRSA, and then we have, of course, the pandemic, and during that period we got very close online, and we had quite a number of meetings, and we did a lot of work that was about trying to get a perspective on what was going on for researchers, and we developed a position statement and developed a survey of researchers to find out what's really going on the ground. So we're still trying to get to grips with that. We've got a good, strong document, position paper that has been presented to the provost. So that's ongoing work. So really, I think that's all I want to say about the TRSA. And just before I stop, just who is from Trinity? I know some faces, just to get a sense. Yeah. So we're really trying to grow the TRSA. We need people to just get involved. It does make a difference. Meeting, if you feel isolated, it's friendly, and you can just find a lot more support by hearing what's going on. There are a lot of researchers within Trinity that do feel isolated. We find that out because it's such a big organisation, and people come in for very short amounts of time and feel isolated, and then they're gone again. So it can be quite a lonely journey, but the TRSA is very supportive. So if you haven't been involved, please join up with us. Thank you.
And also I'm thinking the pandemic is 2 years, and with short-term contracts, there's probably been a lot of new people. Short 2 years is actually a long time, and for a lot of new people to be joining. So it's even more difficult that you're not getting together. I'm just realizing today the Irish Research Staff Association had its annual meeting. Was there any action points or something that you can discuss that the organization has put forth in the past 6 months, or is going to be coming forth soon, similar to how Michelle was talking about some of the action points from the TRSA?
So I think we have many discussions this afternoon. So I think one of the key ones is about how to improve the job conditions for researchers. So this is about making sure that we can secure a career in academia if we chose to stay, if it's, that's the plan that we have. So the action point that I would take from that discussion is that we do need to pressure for a better and more stable streaming of funding, because what happens with most of those contracts is that we are there while we have funding. So the funding is gone and our jobs are done. And I'm sure that you have seen in many situations when you have to apply for a job that was ours, and it's so humiliating, and it happens so many times. So the idea is that in the next, maybe the next government, let's say in the next budget, there is enough funding that jobs they can be established or just that we can apply for jobs that we know that they can last for a few more years, especially something that we would like to see more research positions. So for example, if you want to have a career in academia long term, you have to be a lecturer or professor. So we don't see something like research professorships. So I have seen that in Germany, in Portugal, in Switzerland, but here we don't have something like this. We don't have this kind of structure. So what we would like to see is a new research structure where we have a few, I think just a few career choices, that we just don't have one path in front of us. And even if eventually we feel it's time to leave academia, this should be a choice because we feel that we could do better in industry, not because we think that it's time to just leave because it's not going to work out. So we are very upset when we see people just leaving academia because they think it's not sustainable. So the central point of our discussion this afternoon was to make sure that we have careers that they are sustainable and that can, hopefully we can feel safe and secure and not be afraid of not having a job, of not having a job in the next months or 3 years down the line. I think that was one of the main issues. Do you want to comment?
Oh, I can just add on to it.
Well, I was going to say that, no, you had mentioned the career sustainability. Want to address that in terms of mental health?
Yeah, I can. Obviously, career sustainability is a big issue, particularly if you're on a short-term contract. So the idea is that we should have career paths that have clear terms and conditions of employment, not something, and that you have a pay scale. So as has been said, in other countries such things exist. So it isn't just a case that you come in and you're at the whim of your PI who's got the grant, who just sees you as a worker bee, who just does the work, and that you're going to go away. So there has to be a complete rethink of what it means to be a researcher in a higher education institution. And this means a conversation not only with the funders of research, but the higher education institutions themselves, that in the HR sense, the employer, and they need to come together to work out what we can do, because a lot of the time, people who come in on short-term grants are also doing other jobs. They're doing teaching, they're doing supervision, they're doing lots of other things that are nothing to do with the grant that they were employed on. And that's where you get your stress things going on. But going back to the idea of, having some self-awareness, the researcher that walks into a position like that and finds themselves doing all this odd jobbing around the place because they're thinking, oh, this will get me another job. They need to have that self-awareness to say, hang on a minute, what was it I came in here to do? Who have I spoken to about what this job is about? Do I know what my terms and conditions of employment are? You have to bring it up, raise more awareness. That's your responsibility, I think, to do that. Otherwise you can suffer in silence. So that's why the conversation is very important, and thinking that you have a right to a career. You have that right, but you have to get your voice out there. You don't have to accept this situation. You know, if you know when you walk into a short-term contract, you need to know where you're going with that, what your motivation is, how you're going to use that to get you to where you want to go, and that somebody else knows that, preferably the person who you are reporting to. I don't know if that's, you know.
Yes, do you want to add? Sorry.
Yeah, I would just say that's an excellent response as well, and to, you know, in times of stress, like, to have that support system, and it's one of the aspects of mental toughness, the interpersonal confidence, and that's really how willing are you to put your own hand up and address your own needs and concerns, as opposed to waiting for somebody else to magically bring it up. And so yeah, these are all the daily stressors, these little micro aggravators that just, they become insidious after a while. So if we don't manage them or don't be proactive about the things that are consistently stressing us, these daily stressors, and they really become much bigger.
And also that freeze that you can get into, but we just have to get ourselves out of. That's what those little the breathing exercise and stuff to help you get the confidence to speak up, because it can be difficult with your supervisor sometimes, the stress of it, because they are in control lots of times of what of how your day is going to go. But so we had put a form on for online questions, so let me go to one of those. There's one that so one person wrote in, unfortunately, events like these can be exclusionary for a substantial subset of people, those with young families and those with caring responsibilities, who often cannot attend events outside of working hours. How does the panel propose we should better engage with all people who might benefit or want to engage in events such as this? So that's why I'll start speaking on behalf of Women in Research Ireland. That's why this event, even though it's in person, we're very excited to be back in person. It's being recorded, so it could be on the YouTube channel. So if you can't be here now, or even if you can't log in from home, it's archived and you can watch it. And also this mental health workshop series, there have been 4 events, and the other 3 were all online. They were on Zoom, and 2 of them were at 1 in the afternoon, and then 1 was in the evening. So 2 of these have been in the evenings, just the other 3 were online. And those that were all recorded and put on the YouTube channel. So that, in our small little way, that's what Women in Research Ireland is trying to do. And we even know for people, not just with families, but if they are immunocompromised or something, that there are a lot of reasons why you can't be here in person. So we try to do that. And that was also why I put in on the form to put in your question, so that if you can't be here, at least your voice can be heard, and even this will be on the video, so you can see that. So hopefully we've accomplished that, but also it's good that we hear that these are the voices. So does the panel want to address that as well?
Yeah, I think it's okay. So I think I was dealing with someone on our social media, on Twitter. Someone was saying that this was a presentist event. I didn't even know that word.
Oh, what?
A presentist, like it's something about presentism. This is a new discussion after COVID, where we are now back to be present, in person, to see each other's faces. So I started a small discussion. I promised myself I would never do this kind of thing on Twitter, but it's very hard not to. So I think that was a kind of a critique, because we were having this event online, and that person was saying that it should be held, that we're having this event in person and it should be done online. So my argument was that we have been doing so much online during the pandemic because it was the only option. And actually, when you think about my own experience with RSA, we started in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. So for me, it was a way to get in contact with people. Like most of my colleagues, even from women in research, we just met online. So now finally we're having a chance to be here in person, and I do appreciate. But I think we learned some lessons during the pandemic, and those lessons, I think many of them, but one of them are that when you think about events, we can do hybrid events. So I'm also a teacher, and when I'm in the classroom, I do try to have like exercises in class, but also to have activities online, because now we know how to use these online spaces, and they have been working very well. I don't think we should that we should just drop everything and go back running to have everything in place. So there is no need for that. But when it's possible, we should have this kind of situation, because networking is so much easier, especially for us that we are in the early stages of our careers. Like meeting someone in person makes a big difference. Sometimes it has been very, very challenging. So, for example, I'm now in DCU. I have been trying to find, or to I think at least we start the local Research Staff Association in DCU. It has been very hard to find people, because there is not that many situations where I can meet people. So I think if you have opportunity to do events like this, I think we should do. This one today is hybrid, so anyone can have access. All the events that we have been doing in Women in Research, they are now on YouTube. We have social media, people can get in touch. So I do encourage that people do hybrid events if they can. There is a lot of challenges to organize them, but I think they work, and they work well.
Oh, I just concur. I think that hybrid is good, but it comes with its challenges, because I don't know who's out there at the moment with us online, and sometimes you might not feel that you are part of it when you're online and there's a physical event. So I think we have to find a way, and I've been in other forums the same thing about how do you try to make everybody feel that they're included. It is challenging, but I think we're learning how to do that at the moment.
I just want to again concur with you guys. I think as you're doing, you've come up with a very positive solution to something that is a little bit complex, and whether it's from distance or people, as you said, for various reasons can't get here. I personally am enjoying being back in the face-to-face world, because I missed it. It was gone for so long. And I do think you seem to have had a good balance with your events, and just going forward, keep that solution going.
And actually it was Dr. Stephen Porges. I attended one of his online events. It was at the beginning of the pandemic, and he was even saying that, you know, Zoom is great and having these online meetings is great, but it is a Band-Aid. You know, as humans, we've survived and kept existing because of interpersonal interactions, helping each other get food, helping each other build a community. So even though there are obligations, you know, family and other, even if you've had a rough day and you're tired, sometimes you have to choose your priorities. Is tonight a night that I want to attend this event, or go out with this friend, or see this person, or just take some time to yourself? So you can't attend everything, but make choices for yourself if you do just want a break and need to kind of clear your head on things. So then there was also one other, I think, Lorna, this will be for you, because one of the questions was about mental toughness. So another person wrote in, do we really need more mental toughness or resilience to address the problems of short-term contracts? Those who are on these contracts have already demonstrated substantial toughness and resilience in competing for and completing postgraduate programs, competing for posts, moving countries for work, and so on. This approach dangerously positions the problem as one within the individual and not within the system. What changes does the panel believe are needed at the system level to address the mental health impact of short-term contracts? And first of all, I would definitely say that the fact that these organizations, the Irish Research Staff Association and the Trinity Research Staff Association, are getting their voices heard and coming together, and it is going beyond the individual level, that's getting the attention of the universities, because you've met with the provost, and yeah, so it's getting the word out there. So I wanted to say this, I wanted to read this comment out loud just to have it be heard, that there is a right there that, yeah, there's more onus on the individual as a researcher, but as has been said here a couple of times, that we do need to take care of ourselves and also think about these things so that we can speak up for ourselves, because that is the position we find ourselves in. So did you want to?
So I'll let you guys answer the last part of the question about what can we do systemically to change these issues. But again, just to echo what Susan said, the purpose of tonight's discussion wasn't necessarily about developing mental toughness, because as you guys, being the position that you are in at the minute, are already incredibly mentally tough. It was just more about creating awareness of this aspect of our mindset that we do have a bit of control over, or we can use this tool or this framework as something that's helpful to help us understand our own mindset and our thought processes. Especially when we are stressed and we're feeling a little bit low, it's harder to see the wood from the trees. So it enables us to kind of navigate our mindset and bring it back into an area of positivity when it has drifted. So certainly no means saying that you need to be mentally tougher or to develop it, but just to create an awareness around it.
Yeah, I mean, I relate very strongly to that, what that person said on the question. I think that you do need to have resilience, which has already been demonstrated by the journey that you've been on through doing a PhD and then becoming a researcher in a higher education institution. But sometimes that can work against you because you're so used to doing that dogged work and just putting the head down, going at it, that strength that you have can be your weakness, and you can then have that burn you out. So you need to, I think my sense after all of these years and thinking back to when I did my PhD and got my job at Trinity, I just went at it. I just kept going and taking up every opportunity that was there, because that's the way you are. It's about excitement, new opportunities, but sometimes you can actually do too much, and you can, as has been seen in research that I've done, is that you can actually take yourself down a path that can be disruptive to your CV even. You can do things that make it difficult for you to go in the direction that you thought you were going in, because you just kept responding to everything that was going on around you, because there's always more you can do. There is always, oh, I better get some teaching, I better take on that supervision, I better go for that grant. So you're in an institution that will probably let you do that. I mean, occasionally there'll be people that will not be given those opportunities, and that's a problem as well. So the freedom can be a big problem but you can find yourself doing a job that is like a person who's on a very different set of terms and conditions than you are. So that's where you have the structural imbalance. But I think that people coming in from being a PhD student, they need to know exactly why they're doing that PhD and where they think they're going. So because the world has changed, there's way more PhD students than there were a decade ago, and there are no jobs in academia like there used to be. And it isn't just sufficient for higher education institutions to say, well, we'll take them in and burn them up and tell them they should go. So a PhD student needs to know where they're going, what their career path is, and then once you do get a short-term contract, you know exactly what you're doing and where you're going with that. Don't be, the rabbit in the headlights thinking, oh, isn't it brilliant, I've got a job. Because you can be consumed very, very quickly and and get burnt out. So being that level of awareness about your own career, and that you are not just there as a servant, just do more and more and more. You need to be very, very clear.
So I think just very briefly, I do think that we as researchers, we do have a lot of resilience because this is part of our profession. We have to learn how to deal with job rejections, with applications that you are not successful, with papers that you get this kind of awful comments. So in a way, we learn very quickly, since we are PhD students, how to do that in a way. But then I have a problem with this kind of resilience training, especially when I see in my own university now and before that we see people from HR, they invite us for resilience training, and it's so empty because it's just about telling us how to be strong and things that in a way they're just too general and they are not applicable to real life. So, and they tell us that it's about us, it's we that we have to change, but it's not the case, especially if it's, I think thinking about it, our job careers in academia, we can do some change in the individual level, but so much need to change in the research structures, in the universities, in relation to gender and equality, so many other issues that they are outside our control in a way, but that we can do something about it. So this is about changing society and not exactly just changing us. So every time I attend this kind of training, I put this kind of questions because I do think we should discuss those issues, but from a point of view that's more realistic. And when I was a postdoc in UCD, we had this kind of conversation. So they were trying to be helpful in a way, but the solution that they presented to us was to go to industry and leave academia. And I did have an issue with that, and I had very open conversations with the people doing this kind of training, and I think they understood, but just the way they see academia is like this. There is no jobs for all the people who are interested, so the solution for you, if you want to be strong, you can leave, and they teach you that it's okay to leave, which is fine. I think it can happen, but again, it should be a choice that you have to make because you feel that's the best choice, not because it's the only one. So I do appreciate when our universities push this conversation, but they usually guide this conversation from a point of view that's not useful for us, but maybe it's useful for our employers and institutions. So that's something to keep on discussing, I think. Thank you.
We'll also keep in mind human resources they're there to protect the institute, so they're just ticking a box lots of times. We've had our mental toughness for the year, so always bear that with a grain of salt. And then there was another question about people on short-term contracts. So this is a technical question, I'll see who can answer. What proportion of people on short-term contracts are trade union members, and would organizations in the workplace help mental health? Does anyone know? Do you know? No? Yeah, we don't know that. Oh, you do know? Oh.
Yes, because you sent me that question. So I spoke with people in iFood and I asked them for the numbers, and they told me that there is about I think 200 people registered with iFood as researchers, but they're not able to say how many of them were short-term contracts. So they don't ask this kind of information in the form apparently. So they are not able to say. It was more than I was thinking, because some years ago I heard it was about 50, so now it's 200. So of course it could be better. So it would be great if more researchers they join unions, not necessarily iFood, but the one that I think that would represent them. I think it would make a big difference, especially if you have issues in your institution. Because as a researcher, especially if you are in a short-term contract, I think someone said that today, it's very hard to say no. You can be sometimes exploited, you can be harassed, and you have very little power. So if you are a member of a union, you can possibly, and I think most likely, have the support that you need, especially if something happens and you need to bring your case to the courts. They would give you this kind of support. So they encourage me to encourage everyone here today to join iFood or any other union they think would represent them. And
then we're finishing up. So one final question I was going to say for for everyone here in the audience, what can the panel suggest that researchers do when they leave? How can they support the Irish Research Staff Association and the Trinity Research Staff Association so that everyone in the audience here can feel empowered and have learned something to be able to support these organizations?
Well, I think a few things. The first one is to speak about it. So it's very challenging when we are in a position that we feel very vulnerable because we don't have job security. But I think you know by now that a lot of your colleagues are also in the same situation. So in my own department, I find it very hard to push this conversation. So there's a series of new people that were hired, and for some reason, just me and my colleagues, the both of us, we were the only two who were hired in a short-term contract. So no one knew about it, and I was very surprised. Also, you didn't know that I was just not temporary contract, and they didn't know. So it's very important that we push this conversation. We have social media, we are on LinkedIn and Instagram, so do get in contact. If you can, join your local organization. If in your organization you don't have one, try to get in contact with your others. Maybe ask us how you can start one. So I think those are very simple things, but keep in contact and speaking about it, and join a group that you can feel safe and can discuss these issues. It can be very helpful.
Yes, I say exactly the same thing. Get your voice heard and let people know what your experience is. I mean, oftentimes you can be at a meeting perhaps and people are talking about things that are alien to you in your world of work, because they might be talking about promotions and opportunities that are there for the other staff in the room. Like if you're in Trinity, it may be that they're talking about administrative staff and their opportunities, or academic staff and their opportunities. They might be talking about sabbaticals, or they might be talking about promotion. But there's a lot of things that you have no access to, and a lot of people don't know. They don't actually know, as you say, that you might be there for a few months and someone might ask you to get involved, to do something, and you might think, oh, isn't that great? But they don't actually know that you are in a very different set of terms and conditions. So it needs to just come out of the open, out into the open. There's a great silence going on. And I think that's where being involved in the TRSA, if you're in Trinity, and being involved in the Irish Research Staff Association can help just help others as possibly, and help yourself, because everyone usually feels better after having a chat about their situation, because little by little you have to chip away to make any changes, because we are at risk of becoming, just that group of employees that remains as the other group that don't get the recognition that they should get, because policy is one of the policy that's coming down nationally through organisations such as the Irish University Association, yes, Darren, yeah, is one where the researcher career is about coming in, taking all those training opportunities to develop yourself, even though you've spent years doing your doctorate, but it's about training you, and then that you should in the end leave. So that's what the policy is, but we have to critique that and talk about it and be very open about it, I think.
Lorna, I was gonna say, can you address community? Like, how these organizations are a community and how important that is?
Yeah, like that was the one thing I was thinking there when you were speaking, Michelle, was that you're not alone. Like remember that everyone in this position is feeling the pressure and the stresses as well, and a problem shared is a problem halved. So like that, do lean into the formal support systems, but also your friends, the people in the staff room that you're having lunch with. As you said, the only way to bring about change is to kind of end the silence on it, and use your voice and ask for change, because as you stated, as an institution, it might be suitable for things to remain the same because they have the honeybee workers and without the reward or the security. And so if you don't use your voice, that no one is going to just bring about change one day. No one is coming to save the situation, but you can do something about it. So I suppose just to have that confidence in yourself and know that you have the power to bring about a bit of systemic change. It's big change, don't get me wrong, but one small change for you every day could be feeling less stressed because you're able to talk about your worries with your colleagues. So little tiny maintenance-based things. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience to ask for the panel, or has a lot of things have been covered?
There's 2 questions in the slide up.
What?
There's 2.
The questions on the slide
Well, no, I had, so we're back in person, and I'm having technical difficulties, so I can't do the final Slido. What I'm gonna do is I'll email it via the Eventbrite. If you don't mind, I'll keep it open for the next 24 hours. It's just asking about the event, because we need to collect data for the Royal Society of Chemistry of how the event went. I would love to do it right now, but my computer is not happy with the Wi-Fi, so I'm not connected. So, is that what you were referring to?
No, sorry, what I was trying to say was there's 2 people who have written in questions
Oh,
for the Q&A on the slide.
okay. I didn't know that was possible.
Okay, I'll ask you.
Yeah, please.
So one is when or how one should recommend it's time to stop being tough and walk away and find some form of happiness in another field.
That's a very individual question, and I suppose it's an awful thing to spend so long developing a career and really carving your own path to be told at the end of it, that's the end of the road. It really would have to be your own personal decision. No one would be able to answer that for you. But I suppose in terms of mental health and well-being, if you feel that the situation that you're in is severely negatively impacting you, and if you feel that you would be better off trying a career in industry or looking for that stability, sometimes it's something that the grass is greener on the other side. And I have left academics a few years ago, but I can tell you there's a lot of instability and volatile environments in every industry at the minute. You may very well find that you'll go out and still be offered 0 hours, 0 contract hours, nothing longer than a few years. So I would say to investigate if that question is niggling at the back of your mind, if it's causing a little bit of stress, then see how it is being done outside of academics. And it's not a one-way door either. You can leave and come back, I'm sure. I know a big thing for especially young people in their 20s, 30s, a massive stability issue would be maybe applying for a mortgage or wanting to buy your own home or something like that, and that's a no-go when you have short-term contracts. So it could maybe be possible to leave and do something that's a little bit more stable, and then come back to what it is that you love if you find that the grass isn't necessarily that green. But I suppose one thing that can be, it's that feeling of being stuck in your head, right, and being boxed in, and these are my only options. So a big stress reliever is sometimes you just remind yourself that there are other options. I'm not stuck here, it's not a prison, and I love what I do, but if it suited me and if I felt that my mental health would be significantly improved by a change in direction, just remember that you can give yourself that space, even if it's just a bit of headspace. Sometimes what's really helpful is actually just looking up jobs.ie, and you'll see, the salaries aren't great. There's not, I wouldn't be earning what I have. I still wouldn't have the security. So sometimes that can be a little stress reliever as well, is to investigate the outside.
What's the final question?
Yeah, the final question was actually slightly answered already by the panel, which was And the final comment on how research in universities are mostly made up of PhD students. So how does that affect like long-term research careers?
The PhD students. Yeah.
That they're male, that they're mostly male?
No, it's
No, mostly PhD students. So I guess there's like you kind of commented before. I guess there's more PhD students than there is long-term research careers, and it feels I guess like there's a lot of
An imbalance, like, yeah.
or like most research is done by PhD students, I guess, and they're not turning them into careers. You know what I mean? They're actually using that work instead of long-term research, like or postdoc work instead.
Yeah, I think there is a PhD factory, and you know, has to be places, things for people to do. The PhD is not a route to a career in academia. The jobs aren't there, but unfortunately, there are researchers, large volumes of researchers working in higher education institutions that don't have careers, and that's the thing. It's about how we can make meaningful careers because they're doing work that outside of their contract. That is permanent work that always exists, work such as marking, supervision, teaching. So there has to be a rethink of what a job is as a researcher, thinking beyond the grant. But if I could just pop back to the other question, if I could, and I liked the way you responded to it, Lorna. But I remember I was doing some research on postdoctoral lives, and this came up at about reaching that point when what am I doing? What is going on for me? And this idea was about, you know, reevaluating what I'm at or reinventing and realizing, do I still want to be living in a flat sharing with others when I'm 50? Or, you know, making decisions about a grant based on whether I can be pregnant. I mean, that's where you get serious issues for people when they've been caught over time. Can I get a mortgage? I can't. So that's where the reevaluation or reinventing, there's maybe another string that they have to their bow that they've decided, actually I'm much, much happier doing that other thing that I do that is not the research job. So things like that can happen for people, but I think having that awareness, going back to knowing what this is about, understanding the rules of the game, because this is a bit of a game that's going on, and you know, not everybody's, the employer isn't necessarily, you know, they've got their motives, and to be fair, researchers also, this is well documented, like the flexible nature of the world of research. The job that they might find on their die might not be the job that suits them, you know. So they're caught then, sometimes they're colluding with the system. So we have to face up to these things. What is it that we want? Where do we see ourselves going? Where do we sit in this system? Is it time to move on? Or if I'm going to stay, how am I going to make it work?
Yeah, so I think my comment on that is I also feel you, the person who asked that first question, when it's time to leave. Of course, every time I get a rejection, I always think, is this little push I needed? But then I think I don't feel ready to give up yet, because I think it's so hard to just leave behind all my publications, all my research. I do love the research I do. I think my research has a social impact, and I would like to be doing that. I don't see this happening if I get a job in the private sector. But then, because I have a lot of friends in IT, they keep telling me, oh, you'll be like this the rest of your life, you could make so much money. And I'm like, would I make so much money? Because I'm actually in social science, so maybe if you have a PhD in science, you have more options in industry. People in humanities and social science is a little bit different. I have always been told, okay, but then you can it's just about the way you present your skills and your research. It's not exactly as easy as that. So making this change is something that perhaps at some point I have to make that decision. I'm not there yet, but I'm starting to realize more recently, and especially after today, that you can see other other paths in front of you. There is not just that one. And it kind of, it gives you some freedom to realize, okay, there is some other options for me and I can be happy in other ways. So maybe one day I will make this choice, not today. I think I want to try a little more. I want my work with the Irish Research Staff Association to be effective, that we can change things. We have done so much already. We have meetings with the Minister for Higher Education. We have made some missions. We have tried to be more influential in changing policy, organizing events, getting in touch with researchers. So I do sense that we can do something about it. So especially when we get to a certain age and stage, you feel like you have to make this change. But it's up to you, of course, it's always up to you. But do what makes you feel happier, and that can help with your mental health as well. This is my only advice on that.
So yeah, getting the politics to change and getting the awareness of it, that's the big impact that will help this. And also self-awareness, similar to what I mentioned earlier about learning that balance between personal needs and your professional obligations. So thanks everyone for coming, and thanks to our panel for answering the questions, and hopefully everyone learned something today, or at least you had an hour or so to take a breath, so that when you go back tomorrow, you can be a little bit more aware of what's going on and feel a bit more empowered from all this. So thanks to the panel, and there's refreshments outside if anybody wants to join us.